Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to extend a very warm welcome to each one of you at the nice global conclave from the laps of the beautiful Himalayas, where the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement is located. The think tank was established in the month of February in the year 2016. It undertakes independent research in the field of international relations, foreign policy, security studies, and development. NICE has 4 research centers: China Studies, Neighborhood Studies, Non-Traditional Security Studies, and Security and Strategic Studies. The institute focuses on 8 research topics: climate change and energy, global governance, sustainable development and smart cities, refugee and migration, China's Belt and Road Initiative, border and transboundary water politics, Indo-Pacific affairs, disaster management, and international economy and development. Previously, NICE has had the opportunity to host distinguished speakers from all around the globe.
It was a great pleasure inviting me to speak here at NICE.
It's a real pleasure to be able to speak with all of you.
Well, thank you anyway, and I certainly admire the work that you're doing.
I'm very happy to be with you all.
NICE Global Conclave is the flagship event of the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, Nepal. The theme of the 3-day conference is Connecting Nepal to the World by bringing leaders, diplomats, business leaders, and scholars from all around the globe. The objective of the conclave is to introduce Nepal to the world and at the same time update the Nepalese policymakers and experts about the fast-changing geopolitics, which will help Nepal reshape its foreign policy to achieve its national goal. This is the inaugural session of the conference, and to moderate this session, it's a real pleasure to have with us Dr. Pramod Jaiswal. Dr. Pramod Jaiswal is the Research Director at the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement. He is a visiting fellow at the Sandia National Laboratories, New Mexico, and Senior Fellow at the Institute of Peace and Conflict Studies, New Delhi. Dr. Jaiswal has been a regular and visiting faculty at different universities of Nepal and China. Without any further ado, sir, I request you to take the session forward.
Thank you, Paki. Honorable Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, Member of Parliament and Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Member of Indian Parliament, Lok Sabha, former Minister of State for External Affairs and former Under Secretary General at the United Nations. Mr. Suresh Prabhakar Prabhu, Foreign Minister and Indian Emissary to G20 and G7. Dr. Abdulla Rasheed Ahmed, Minister of State for Education, Maldives. Professor Taniguchi Tomohiko, Professor of Keio University and a Special Advisor to Prime Minister ShinzoAbe. Distinguished speakers, friends from diplomatic mission, foreign and security experts, participants from academics and media, esteemed partners of the conclave, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste and good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all at the first NICE Global Conclave 2021. NICE Global Conclave is a flagship event of Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement. The theme of the 3-day conference is Connecting Nepal to the World, where we aim to connect ourselves with the leaders, diplomats, business leaders, and scholars from all over the world. At this first NICE Global Conclave 2021, we are hosting 220 highly distinguished speakers from 41 countries who will be sharing their expertise through 45 sessions. The objective of the conclave is to introduce Nepal to the world and at the same time update the Nepalese policymakers and experts about the fast-changing geopolitics, which will help Nepal reshape its foreign policy to achieve its national goal. NICE Global Conclave will be held every 2 years. NICE has hosted several eminent leaders, policymakers, and public intellectuals, such as Professor Noam Chomsky, Professor Meir Seymour, Professor Stephen Walt, former Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand, Sir Donald Charles Mackinnon, State Minister of Education of Maldives, Dr. Abdulla Rasheed Ahmed, Foreign Minister of Nepal, Pradeep Kumar Gewali, Minister of Education of Nepal, Giriraj Mani Pokhrel, State Minister of Regional Cooperation of Sri Lanka, Mr. Tharaka Balasurya, Professor Kishore Mahbubani, Foreign Secretary of Sri Lanka, Admiral Dr. Jayanath Kolambege, Vice Admiral Yoji Koda, Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force, former Foreign Secretaries of India, Chief of Defense Staff of Indian Armed Forces, General Bipin Rawat, directors of several reputed think tanks, and others. We have hosted several international conferences, such as International Women's Summit, Young Scholar Summit, International Conference on China, International Conference on International Migration, and several others. At NICE, we have created a fine balance between policy and academic research. In spite of being a think tank, we have a strong engagement with reputed universities around the world. The NICE Global Conclave is supported by 17 universities and think tanks. LAT School of International Affairs, George Washington University of Washington, D.C., Institute of South Asian Studies, National University of Singapore, Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, School of Public Affairs, American University, Washington, D.C., Center for South Asian Studies, Fudan University, Shanghai, Institute of China Studies, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Institute of Asian Studies, Chulalongkorn University, Bangkok, United Service Institution of India, New Delhi, National Maritime Foundation, New Delhi, Global South Studies Center, University of Cologne, South Asia Democratic Forum, Brussels, Institute of Bay of Bengal Studies, Shenzhen University, Shenzhen, Institute of National Security Studies, Colombo, Romanian Institute of Europe Asian Studies, Bucharest, Romania, Bharat Center for Canada, Toronto, Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, Dhaka, and Center for Asia Leadership, Boston. At this three-day conclave, we have eminent panelists discussing India's foreign policy, such as India's neighborhood first policy, India-Nepal policy, Nepal's foreign policy, Nepal-China relations, Nepal-India relations, foreign direct investment and foreign aid of Nepal, Nepal's political instability, breaking the vicious circle, geopolitics of small and landlocked states, revitalizing SAARC and BIMSTEC, enhancing cooperation between BBI and countries, regional security framework in South Asia, emerging security challenges in South Asia, China's foreign policy, China's Belt and Road Initiative, and China caught into geopolitics rivalry, rise of Asia, rise of China, connectivity and regional integration in Asia, US foreign policy under Biden administration, future of American world order, future of Quad, maritime cooperation in Indo-Pacific, and future of Indo-Pacific strategy, post-COVID-19 world order, impact of the pandemic on transnational migration, contemporary migration issues, gender in international relations, soft power and public diplomacy, nuclear disarmament, arms control and non-proliferation, non-traditional security issues and preventing extremism and building resilient society. Apart from this, we have also invited around 10 Nepalese ambassadors serving at different missions around the world. We have a special session with renowned scholars of international relations like Professor Barry Bujan, Emeritus Professor at London School of Economics and Political Science, and Professor John Ickenberry of Princeton School of Public and International Affairs. Today, we are also launching our biannual journal, Journal of Security and International Studies. The first issue of this journal will be released on 1st January 2022. The NICE Global Conclave is an academic discussion. The chair, moderator, and panelist will speak in an open format without protocol precedence. I, on behalf of NICE, would like to thank you all our distinguished speakers and participants for joining us today. We are really honored by your kind presence. The conclave is streaming live on a Facebook page, Twitter, and several Facebook pages of Nepali media simultaneously. We have shared the link in the chat box, so kindly share it on social media so that maximum can benefit from this discussion. We'd also like to request everyone to tweet about this event with hashtag NICE Global Conclave. To begin with, let me invite Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena, to make his remarks. Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena is a veteran politician who has served as Minister of Transport, Minister of Environment, Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Minister of Secretariat Area Development, Minister of Urban Development, Minister of Water Supply and Drainage, Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, and has served as the leader of the joint opposition. Honorable Minister, once again, we'd like to welcome you at NICE Global Conclave, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear friends. First of all, I wish to thank the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement, NICE, for the kind invitation extended to address the inaugural session of NICE Global Conclave, and I wish great success in your deliberations. Nepal is connected to Sri Lanka for 2,610 years, as recorded since the first visit of Gautama the Buddha, who was born in Lumbini to the Sakyan dynasty and later became Buddha, the enlightened one. Nepal, situated at the rooftop of the world, is surrounded by the Himalayas, giving birth to natural springs of pure, clean water. These waters on their flow down sustain life and nature before giving into the Indian Ocean, whereby helps create immense wealth for most of South Asia. Therefore, the theme of the conclave is very much relevant and timely. It is timely because it brings all of us who believe in dialogue and cooperation together. It offers all of us an important opportunity to reflect how we could broaden our understanding of the diverse challenges we are faced with today, and how best we could move forward together, advancing collective measures, even as the pandemic persists and is bound to cast a long shadow into the future. The relevance of the theme, however, lies in the evolving contours of a global order that is in the making. There is no doubt that the ground under our feet is shifting slowly, unpredictably, in terms of a new orientation. I address you today. It is the reality that we are entering a global new norm brought about by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Lives, livelihoods, and health of the people around the world has faced with the greatest challenge in 100 years. We are all aware that the unprecedented crisis has spilled over to economies of countries, especially developing countries, are facing an additional burden in this context. Sri Lanka too has its own share of challenges to contend with. Foreign policy of Sri Lanka is pursuing a fresh vision based upon the vistas of prosperity and splendor, the manifesto of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, which received overwhelming mandates from the people of Sri Lanka in November 2019 and the parliamentary elections of August 2020. In accordance, the ministry has adopted 20 key foreign policy directives for 2020 and beyond. As the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, I had occasion since coming to office to elaborate and supplement the central thrust of these policy statements. Our highest priority is to maintain friendly relations with all sovereign countries as an equal partner, whilst upholding policy of neutrality and non-alignment without being involved in the superpower rivalry. Sri Lanka, as an island nation in the Indian Ocean, is situated in one of the most geostrategic locations between East and the West. Indian Ocean is the world's third largest. It commands 60% of the world's GDP, sees 80% of the world's shipborne energy transport through its oceans, and facilitates 46% of the world's merchandise trade. 55% of the world's container traffic fly through these waters. With these comes the responsibilities to our people. to the region and the world at large. Respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity is a founding pillar of our engagement. We see the importance of maintaining freedom in navigation in our seas and airspace and protecting sea lines of communication and undersea cables. Maritime security remains one of our highest priorities amidst increasingly busy international sea lanes in the Indian Ocean. Our security is not limited to physical security and consequent regional stability, but also encompasses non-traditional security challenges, including threats to marine environment, overexploitation of ocean-based living and natural resources, pollution, threats posed by oil spills, chemicals, acidification of the seas, and sea level rise are also among our concerns. Distinguished friends, we work together with other nations towards the development of the country and the people whilst protecting our sovereignty and territorial integrity. Similarly, we respect sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in internal affairs of other countries. Mutual respect, as well as a friendship with all, is the core of our principles of engagement. Sri Lanka gives utmost priority to the close cooperation between South Asian countries and similarly with other Asian countries to ensure regional and strategic security. We are members of IORA, BIMSTEC, and SAARC. Sri Lanka is a founder and committed member of the non-aligned movement, and the most important pillar of our foreign policy is neutrality and non-alignment. This month, we celebrated the 90th year of universal suffrage as one of the foremost parliamentary democracies in Asia. Therefore, it is the will of the people that prevails in making our national policies and decisions. It is this will which formulates what is best to cooperate in specific areas of national advancement. Where Sri Lanka looks forward to further on closer cooperation with Nepal too, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government has embarked on a new chapter of socio-economic development. Both Singapore and Dubai had been key financial centers, while there had been a long overdue in between. This will be served by the Colombo International Financial Center based at Colombo Port City. As Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, I wish to make this opportunity to request and invite foreign investors to come and invest, where we will extend our fullest facilitation. Surely, this will create much greater access, not only for Nepal, but also to connect all connected entrepreneurs and investors. Sri Lanka will continue to explore new investment, trade and employment, ventures and opportunities. Our entrepreneurs and professionals have the capacity and the skills to contribute to the economic progress of other countries while bringing benefits for Sri Lanka. Distinguished friends, I must take this opportunity to state categorically that Sri Lanka has always opted for and has consistently been pursuing international cooperation and multilateralism for the achievement of sustainable development goals. We engage in constructive dialogue with foreign countries in order to obtain their support for furthering Sri Lanka's interest in the international arena on the environment, sustainable agriculture, food security, development of human resources, and economic prosperity. We need to work for regional economic integration and enhance maritime connectivity and trade and culture. We have the passion and the commitment to advance the blue economy with the sustainable and responsible use of ocean resources and innovative technologies as important priorities. A proactive, climate-positive foreign policy is in our national interest as an island nation prone to climate change and adverse effects. While Sri Lanka appreciates the role of Nepal as a landlocked in the Himalayas against climate change, we wish to collectively further cooperate with strong commitment towards the climate-friendly manners and far more clean oxygen. Furthermore, Sri Lanka has embarked on the journey to achieve 70% of renewable energy generation by 2030. I trust everyone connected with Nepal Conclave will support our call for international consideration for a debt moratorium to emerge out of the economic crisis prevailing in most countries owing to the current global pandemic. Before concluding, it is earnest to mention that the youth, those below 35 years of age, consist of 2/3 of 1.9 billion people living in South Asia. And naturally, half of them are women. No doubt, they will have to manage much better on growing demands of water, food, and land. Therefore, I wish to invite even more socio-economic programs and actions targeting the youth and women at all counts, importantly, of education, employment, environment. Distinguished friends, we are facing unprecedented times that are stress for us all, a time that challenges our relationships, and we have witnessed globally situations of anger and hostility. We must reject hate and ensure that there is no room for it in our responses. This is why the Buddha taught us that the goal and the very purpose of one's existence is to serve for the benefit of others. Parantam Patipajata. May blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha be with you all. Thank you.
Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena, Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, thank you very much for your remark. We once again would like to thank you for your valuable time. We have just received the message from our next speaker, Dr. Rasheed Tharoor, that he is not feeling well since today morning. So may I now invite Dr. Abdulla Rasheed Ahmed, Honorable Minister of State for Education, Republic of Maldives, for his remarks. Dr. Abdulla Rasheed Ahmed is the Minister of State of Education, Republic of Maldives. He is a distinguished educationalist with 30 years of experience in the field of education. He is a former rector of Avid College and is currently the head of National Institute of Education. Dr. Ahmed was awarded with the title of the Best Principal of the Maldives in 2010. He is also the Global Goodwill Ambassador of International Education Advisory Council. He holds his PhD in Instructional Leadership for Asia University Malaysia, and Masters in Education Leadership from University of Nottingham, United Kingdom. Honorable Minister, we welcome you to NICE Global Conclave, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod. Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena, Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, and Dr. Rasheed Tharoor, Member of Parliament and former Minister of State for External Affairs, India, and Mr. Suresh, former Minister of India and Indian Emissary to G20 and G7, Professor Dr. Tomohiko, Special Advisor to Prime Minister ShinzoAbe, retired from Japan, Excellencies and distinguished participants of NICE Global Conclave. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you, NICE Nepal, for organizing a praiseworthy work creating and sharing knowledge is very important. So thank you for this opportunity. And I thank NICE Nepal for inviting me in multiple times to participate in your global events. In this opportunity, I really want to thank NICE Nepal and especially Dr. Pramod for keeping a very healthy relationship with me. I'm going to continue my speech with a presentation. As you can see, climate change and green school. So that's the topic I have chosen for my speech. The effect of climate change in Maldives is very visible and it's alarming. You can see the severity of soil erosion in the low-lying islands of Maldives. So this is one of the biggest island called Formula. Soil erosion is very severe. This is another island. They are also soil erosion is severe. This is the nature of many of our islands as effect of global change, effect of climate change. And this is Maldives' economy is based on the tourism. So safeguarding our coral reef and white sandy beaches are very important. But you can see the situation of the coral reef because of the climate change. And from the right, you can see this picture. This is the due to sea level rise and tidal waves. Just few weeks before, many islands experienced this difficult time because of the tidal wave and sea level rise. So these are few examples of climate change in Maldives. And if you look at the effect of climate change in Nepal, we can see those beautiful mountains with ice capped. But now what's the situation? So ice is melting, and then there is impact of global climate change in Nepal. Drought is another example. So this is the situation in many countries, either drought or flooding or forest on fire. These things are happening. Even the largest reef in the world, Great Barrier Reef in Australia, is also experiencing this. So climate change is a global issue. It's not an issue of any specific country. As we are talking about the climate change, it's worth to look at the causes and effect of climate change. We all know this, but it is good to reconsider these effects. So the causes like rapid industrialization and also energy use by burning the fossil fuel, and agricultural practice like using the chemicals. Deforestation is another main causes of the climate change. Consumer practice, we are not considering how to use these resources. There should be a limitation, and we have to consider our environment, especially things like 3R, reduce, reuse, recycle. Those things we have to consider. And livestock transportation is another main contributor causing the global warming and the climate change. And resource extraction, finally pollution, is a major problem globally. The effect, we all are experiencing the effect. Some examples I have just shown. Apart from that, rising the temperature and rising the sea level. So some scientists are saying that low-lying islands, low-lying countries like Maldives may not be longer exist after 100 years from now. And also unpredictable weather patterns increase the extreme weather events and land degradation and loss of wildlife and many other things. So what are the social impact of climate change? Yeah, displaced people, poverty, loss of livelihood, hunger, malnutrition, and many things. And countries like Maldives and other small islands, maybe climate migrates. Therefore, we all the countries should take action against climate change. As this is a fact, so what now? So this is the question we all need to ask. The leaders, the citizens, universities, we all should ask this question. As you have seen few examples of the causes of the climate change, impact of the climate change. Now question is, so what now? The answer is this. We have to think globally and act locally. So this is a very nice saying. This should be the motto for every country, every government, every citizen of this globe. We have to think globally, but act locally. So we should have global targets and national policies to be translated into policies and actions at the city level, at the island level, or at the family levels, even in the individual level. Here, as you can see, we have to think globally, and then we should have policies our country level, city level, district level, even individual level. Finally, that will together contribute to minimize the global warming and negative impact of climate change. Now let me share an initiative from Government of Maldives, from Ministry of Education. We are trying to make our schools as environment-friendly schools. So we have developed a framework called Fehi Madrasa. Fehi Madrasa means green school. So let me share this briefly, what we are going to do. In our Fehi Madrasa project, we have objectives and we have main focus. Our objectives are reduce environmental footprint, and also school community members demonstrate environmentally sustainability literacy, and also promote climate prosperity. And as the pillars of this initiative, we have taken waste, ocean, island, and innovation. In all these areas, students will be educated and they will have the right behavior and practicing these things in the school, in the community, with their parents and other community members. So in the Fehi Madrasa or the green school, these are the things we are going to do, like governance and the culture of school, educational programs, school campus, school community involvement. So everywhere there will be sustainable practices and environmental friendly practices. So this is a holistic approach where everyone will be participating. Here you can see that the lesson plans, all subjects and all grade levels to include of lessons where topic is connected to sustainability and environmental stewardship. So that is educational programs. Then there is whole school activities, various events, activities, policies organized at school, encourage positive change towards sustainability. So that is school campus. And also governance and culture of the school, and also school community involved. We believe that we can include the parents, the community members, the students, everyone with the sustainable behavior and the sustainable practices. So if a school wants to be a green school, these are the steps. I'm not going to into detail. So this is the structure of the program, how a school can be a green school. And before we start, we will do a baseline survey. After we will keep the data, then after 1 year of intervention, then we will see what have been changed from the practice, from the behavior and the knowledge as well. So Fehi team comes up with an informed action plan. This is for each school. Each school, they will have their own green school action plans. So how they are going to manage the waste, safe waste management, and also reduce eco footprint, and then the knowledge about the ocean, and teach students how to swim, how to safeguard the coral reef, and also ocean literature and the island, and also innovative practices. Then, as I said before, students will be educated in eco-literacy, climate prosperity. And there will be programs organized for the parents and community members. So this is what I have shown you before. So this is the framework for green schools. So when the schools are ready with their action plans, they will implement the action plans throughout the year and document thoroughly. So once they are ready to inspect, they believe that their schools are now ready for inspection. A team from National Institute of Education will visit the school and see in all these main areas how the school is doing. If the school is doing well, then the school will be awarded the school will be awarded either bronze award or silver award or gold award and super Fehi award. Then they can get a plaque. This can be displayed outside of school, so parents, teachers, students, everybody can see this. But this award and this plaque would be given for 2 years only. Then after 2 years, again, the school will be inspected and see whether the school falls the same category or lower category or higher category. The purpose is to keep the practice as a sustainable manner. So this is like Fehi Madrasa recognition. As I said, different categories of awards will be given to the schools. We believe that students will try to get award for their school. Teachers will try to get award for their school. Then there will be a change in the attitude, behavior. Even now, the syllabus and the textbooks have knowledge about the climate change, global warming, but it's only in theory. It's not in the practice. It's not in the behavior. So our purpose is to change the behavior and inculcate the eco-friendly practices among the parents, among the students as well. So when a school get an award, we will give award with some tools which they can be used to become more greener, like solar panels and segregation bins and LED bulb lights, water fountain, or anything which can be used to be more greener, more environment friendly school. And another thing we are doing is, even the whole world, all the education ministers, 75 education ministers in the world recently agreed Berlin Declaration, in which next 10 years, education systems in the world will be trying to achieve education for sustainable development goals. At the inaugural speech, Honorable Dinesh Gunawardena also mentioned the importance of sustainable development and what Sri Lanka is doing. So same thing, every other country also should do to achieve sustainable development goals. As UN has declared 7 sustainable development goals. When we look at these goals, we can see climate actions, life below water, and life on land. For all these things are very much related to today's topic, climate change. Therefore, I call upon all the members who are participating in this conclave to think globally and act locally to implement education for sustainable development goals, and be a promoter be an advocate to promote and take action to mitigate the negative impact of climate change. We all should work to secure our world and make the world a safer place for our future generation. This world not only belongs to us, this world belongs to the future generation. So therefore, we have to take this world as a safer place to our children and our grandchildren. So that's all I want to share with you. Before conclusion, once again, let me thank the nice Nepal and Dr. Pramod and other organizers for organizing this wonderful conclave. You have organized, even previously, you have organized very wonderful platforms like this. So thank you for your great work. I appreciate it. And once again, thank you for inviting me. I wish everyone a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Minister of State for Education, Republic of Maldives, Dr. Abdulla Rasheed Ahmed, thank you for your wonderful remarks. May I now invite Dr. Taniguchi Tomohiko, Professor of Keio University and Special Advisor to former Prime Minister ShinzoAbe, for his remarks. Dr. Taniguchi Tomohiko is a professor of Keio University and was the Special Advisor to Prime Minister ShinzoAbe. He has also served as Counselor at Prime Minister's Office, Deputy Press Secretary at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Deputy Director General for Public Diplomacy. He was associated with Woodrow Wilson School, Princeton University, Shanghai Institute for International Studies, and the Brookings Institution. He has authored and co-authored more than 10 books on international affairs. Professor Tomohiko, welcome to NICE Global Conclave, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jaiswal. It's a great pleasure for me to join the inaugural session for NICE Global Conclave 2021. The task given to me is to lay out some of the foundations and thoughts in order for you to better understand where Japan stands and what Japan is aiming at achieving now and in the future in the context of its relations with South Asian nations in particular. Also, of late, a new geographic concept of Indo-Pacific has gained currency in Japan and across the world. And I know when and where the concept comes from. And I'll tell you a little bit about the genesis of the new geographic concept. First, let me just begin by introducing or reminding you of what happened way back in 1964 in my childhood. That was about the Olympic flame torch relay. And in order for Tokyo to host previously the Olympic Games in 1964, there was a great torch relay that began in Greece, and that covered many, actually, nations, including, remarkably, Istanbul, Beirut, Tehran, Lahore, New Delhi, Kolkata, Yangon, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Manila, Hong Kong, Taipei, before reaching the soil of Okinawa and Japan. But interestingly, there was a division made in India in order for the torch to reach also Nepal. Nepalese therefore saw the running and relaying of Olympic flame through their own eyes. And the Japanese at the time, and still are, very much humbled by the fact that hosting of the great Olympic Games was therefore celebrated by so many people across Asia. Remember, that was Japan's coming of age celebration, because it took place only 19 years after the war. With that, let me also remind you that come 23rd of July, Tokyo finally is going to host the Olympic Games scheduled initially for the year 2020. Amidst COVID-19, Japan is facing, as well as many other nations, the surge of Delta variant, and we've got to work hard still to make the games of the Olympics and Paralympics as safe as possible. But I think it's important, not only for Japan, but for the rest of the world to see those athletes competing with each other, doing utmost to achieve their own goals in this age of gloomy pandemic. It's a shining torch of hope, isn't it? And I think Tokyo is responsible for providing that opportunity to those people that have had to suffer from this horrendous disease, and to those people, essential medical professionals and other people, to let them have beacon of hope. Japan's foreign and security policy is nothing unique because it shares common interests with many other nations. If you urge me to list 3 most important objectives for Japanese foreign and security policies, number 1, to uphold core values that include, of course, democratic and open governance, freedom of thought, religion, expression, assembly, and rule of law. And that's number 1, to uphold core values. Second, to maintain territorial integrity. That is as important for Japan as for many others. And third, to maintain peace and security, not only around Japan, but also across the world. Remember, Japan is still a big nation. Long ago, China overtook Japan and became the second biggest economy in the world. But Japan still maintains a sizable economy, 3 times as big as Russia's, actually. So in order for Japan to provide well-beings for its own nationals, and in order for Japan to be a constructive player in this global economy, it is vitally important for Japan to do as much as possible to safeguard peace and stability, rule of law in the world. I listed 3 objectives, and you can see that those are not so much unique only to Japan. But may I tell you, one cannot separate one from the rest, because these 3 are all interconnected. Why? And that brings me to address one of the greatest concerns, interests that many of us in the world now have. That is about the rise of China. What country China will have become 30 years from now is something that no one knows for sure, is something I doubt even the great 7 people sitting on the highest chairs of the Chinese Communist Party don't even know for sure. However, in 2049, Chinese Communist Party is going to have to celebrate the centenary of the establishment of People's Republic of China. So if I put myself into the shoes of Chinese leaders, Xi Jinping and others, it's all the more natural, I would say, for them to concentrate all kinds of power available to them on building their economy and on building their military arsenal. And in the meantime, they will challenge sovereignty of neighbors, and they will challenge stability of the neighborhood in a way that's inevitable, given the huge size of China. Never before in the history of humans have we seen such a phenomenal growth of such a big nation under such a firm control of the Leninist kind of the Chinese Communist Party. It's unprecedented, which of course causes anxieties among many, including the Japanese. In order for you to better understand what Japanese foreign and strategic and security policies are like, what matters for Japan is location. Location counts, as with retail business. And if you look at where Japan sits, it is in the, let's say, geo-psychological cul-de-sac. Japan is floating offshore off the great continent of Eurasia and hinged upon the safe passage of commercial fleet that connects Japan with the rest of the world. In addition to that, you must think about the great phenomenal rise of China, as mentioned already. Then you will be led to see what options would be available for Japan now and in the future. Indeed, the path for Japan's future is not wide, it's narrow. There aren't many options available for Japan, except for maintaining Japan's age-old, treaty-based alliance relationship with the United States, and to bring Japan closer to Indo-Pacific countries as much as possible. Recently, much has been discussed about the four-nation group of Quad. And let me just hastily add an observation of mine on Quad. That is not institutionalized. Whether it's going to be institutionalized sometime in the future still is an open-ended question. It is unlikely at the moment that Quad is going to be like Asia's NATO. However, it is vitally important for leaders of India, Australia, the United States, and Japan to meet as frequently as possible, either in person or in this age of pandemic, online, whatever, to discuss whatever is pertinent to their own countries and to the region. In other words, Quad is at a stage where it's very much important for these nations to build a custom of, or a habit of speaking with each other as frequently as possible. Doing so, I believe, itself is going to serve the best interests of the region and beyond, because after all, these four nations can hide very little because they are open democratic countries. So that's about Quad. What else should we say? Under ShinzoAbe, with whom I worked a total of 8+ years, during which he tasked me to write foreign policy speeches on his behalf. And he read and delivered some of the important speeches about Indo-Pacific. Japan has come a long way. And before closing, let me just tell you a little bit about what Japan has done over the last about 10 years. Let me just start by introducing a speech Prime Minister Abe delivered to the Central Hall audience in the Indian Parliament in August 2007. It was the first ever speech made by the visiting Japanese Prime Minister to the joint house of Indian Parliament at Central Hall. The title of the speech was borrowed from a literature, a book published under the same title by Mughal prince named Dara Shikoh. That title spoke volumes because it was entitled Confluence of the Two Seas. By two seas, it meant the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. And the speech envisioned that in the future, there would be a great mingling together of two seas, by which it meant that South Asian economies and African economies would be very much interconnected with the economies in the Pacific. And it is very much important for the region's democratic countries to stand up together and to lift and to shoulder, let's say, great pillars that sustain the peaceful and secure rules-based international order stretching from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. The speech, Confluence of the Two Seas, would become a very much memorable one for many, those in South Asia and Australia and the United States. So much so that the new geographic concept of Indo-Pacific was thus born. Prior to that, the 1980s witnessed a great rise of Asia's four tigers, if you remember: South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore. Around that time, then Japanese Prime Minister Ohira worked with his counterpart in Australia and pushed an idea of holding what would be called APEC, the abbreviation for Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. It was an era for the Asia-Pacific growth. That was indeed very much important, but needless to say, this geographic concept, Asia-Pacific, did not actually cover the growth of South Asia. And needless to say, India is going to be the biggest engine for growth in the next decades. And the Indian Ocean region, including the eastern part of African continent, such as Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, would be the greatest region for global economy, because concentration of growth will be seen more around the Indian Ocean region, which is actually the genesis of the concept Indo-Pacific. What will Japan do now and in the future? Let me tell you, Japan is losing its population. Japan is losing its labor input. That makes a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, less optimistic about the future of Japan. In those circumstances, you couldn't expect much investment to be made into capital stock like machinery. If that's the case, it is unlikely either that the growth in productivity would be foreseeable. It's a vicious downward spiral that Japan has to cope with. And one thing that Japan has chosen to tackle that challenge, the combination of negativities, declining population, slow growth in investment, slow growth in productivity, the country chose to open itself further, which is the reason why Japan led the pack, if I may say so, to forge the half-broken Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP. That's how it's called, TPP-11. And member nations of TPP-11 still anticipate sometime in the future the missing link would be fulfilled. That is to say, the United States would come back to be joined to be part of TPP. RCEP is another achievement jointly accomplished by ASEAN countries plus China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. Here is also a great missing link. That's India. RCEP is just the flip side of East Asia Summit. If you remember, East Asia Summit was launched in the 2000s to make the grouping more open, more rules-abiding, and indeed more democratic by bringing in Australia, New Zealand, India. Singapore deserves credit. Singaporean diplomats worked hard to bring in India together with Japan and to bring in Australia and New Zealand, and succeeded in expanding the horizon of APEC plus 3 to APEC plus 6. The other side of the same coin of EAS was RCEP. So my hope very much is that going forward, India would have a second thought about the concept and join RCEP. There's a great amount of fear, I understand, among Indian business people and entrepreneurs of a possibility whereby Chinese cheap products would make a great inflow into India. That's probably possible. And yet, you should believe in your own potentials. India could compete handsomely with anyone, be it China or whoever. I've told you already that Japan chose to open itself. I think it's a remarkable step that Japan has made of late. I cut my teeth, actually, as a member of the press who covered international economic relationships in the 1980s and in the 1990s. Very few people in the world in the 1980s called Japan a model country when it comes to liberal, open, rules-based international trading regime. But under Abe, Japan has become a champion of maintaining exactly those traits of the international trading regime, rules-based, open, liberal. If that is about trade, let me speak for another 5 minutes before closing. I have spoken already for 23 minutes, and I'm supposed to speak only for 30 minutes about what Japan has done, again under Prime Minister Abe, as regards security provision. There's a unique arrangement under Japan's constitution. You may or may not be aware. Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution is the one that I'm talking about. However, it is now possible for Japan to work seamlessly with like-minded peers. Australia would be one, Indonesia would be another, certainly the United States. It's been made automatic for Japanese armed forces, we call them self-defense forces, to provide security to military assets, boats, ships, aircraft, so on, working close by with the Japanese. Put differently, the Americans and Australians and Indonesians or Indians could expect treading the Asian waters are made safer because they can expect that the Japanese armed forces would come to provide security blanket to your military assets. And that's what ShinzoAbe has made it happen, made available. And combined, you get a great advancement in terms of deterrence capacity. May I say, China is going to go through difficult, challenging period now and in the future. My advice to Chinese leaders would be, do not underestimate the combined deterrence capacity now available for Japan, for Australia, Indonesia, India, Vietnam, and the like. That notwithstanding, it is also true that Japan, India, Nepal, you name it, each and every country in the region, and indeed in the world, must cut a very fine, subtle balance between their strategic concerns and their economic interests. Japan is among them. Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Panasonic, Mitsubishi, great name brand companies of Japan have so much stakes in China. Diplomacy is a subtle undertaking. There aren't blacks and whites. So in the future, China is going to remain among the most important nations for Japan. But in order to stabilize the regional order, what is important for countries such as Japan is never to cease its own effort to grow and to advance on many fronts, including security provision. That is about it. I wish I could take your questions because you may be curious about what I would have to say on many different things, but I'm sorry, I've got to terminate my presentation address here. Again, it's been a great opportunity for me to join this session. And I do hope NICE will grow even further in terms of its global influence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Taniguchi Tomohiko. Thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation. If we have time, we'll try to take few questions, but let me let me move to the next part of the conclave. Before we move to the next speaker, we'd also like to invite our partners to say a few words. So first, we'd like to request Professor C. Rajamohan, Director of Institute of South Asian Studies, National University of Singapore, to make his remarks. Professor Rajamohan, over to you.
Thank you, Pramod. I think it's really a pleasure to be part of this very expansive and very impressive conclave that you and NICE have put together. So let me offer my congratulations to you for this wonderful and very wide-ranging conversation that you have curated in Kathmandu. I want to say a word about ISAS, which is Institute of South Asian Studies. It's a privilege for us to be partners to this. ISAS, I thought I'll say a word about it. It's nearly 2 decades old, mandated with the study of contemporary South Asia and build bridges between East Asia and South Asia, promoting mutual understanding between the subcontinent and the East Asian region. So we are greatly interested in Nepal, which is at a critical location in some ways between South Asia and East Asia. If you think of China as East Asia, here is Nepal bordering both South Asia and East Asia in the Great Himalayas. So I think Nepal's role in the coming years would be an important one for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, the rise of China and the backlash against it is going to make the subcontinent and its waters increasingly critical, which are going to have greater strategic, will become a greater strategic contestation that we're going to see in South Asia. And its waters, we're going to see a lot more contestation. So the old geopolitics of the region that was centered around the Western dominance of this part of the world now will see a new framework where China's rise is going to profoundly alter the terms of geopolitics of this region. So I want to wish NICE all success. And I think that the present, often my friends from Nepal say we are a small country, but actually in the current environment, every state, small or big, is going to be even more consequential, because small does not mean less important. And given the geopolitics of today, every small state in South Asia is going to be very important and significant. So a deeper study of Nepal and Nepal's engagement with the world will be of great value for the world. I might just conclude with the thought: in Singapore, there is a forum of small states, which is actually looking at the international system from the perspective of small states. So we look forward to working more closely with NICE and all our other friends in Nepal, because Nepal's importance, I believe, is going to multiply rapidly in the coming decades. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Professor C. Rajamohan. May I now invite Vice Admiral Pradeep Chauhan, Director General of National Maritime Foundation, to say a few words.
Thank you, Pramod. First of all, let me express what an honor it is for the National Maritime Foundation to be associated with the NICE Global Conclave of 2021. And since many of you will be wondering what the National Maritime Foundation is doing so deeply involved with a landlocked country like Nepal, I thought firstly, let me quickly, like Raja has just done, introduce a couple of words about the National Maritime Foundation itself, starting, of course, with our vision statement. And the National Maritime Foundation is positioning itself to be the foremost resource center for the development and advocacy of strategies for the promotion and protection of India's maritime interests. And in this regard, we have probably 5 basic areas of research interest. We are New Delhi based, but our focus is upon the oceanic spaces of the Indo-Pacific, both the Pacific as well as the Indian Ocean. So we look at holistic maritime security, both in thematic as well as country and region specific. Geostrategic terms, we look at marine, maritime, and naval technology, the blue economy, climate change issues, and their national and regional impacts. We concentrate quite a lot upon oceanic resources, living and non-living, and have a particular focus upon international maritime, public international maritime law, maritime trade, maritime connectivity, maritime safety. So let me return then to the NICE and explain that we were deeply honored and have been deeply honored in the recent past to have been associated with NICE in general and with Dr. Jaiswal in particular. And as Nepal looks to the Bay of Bengal for its external trade, I think that the old shibboleths of what constitutes a maritime outlook and what constitutes an inland or a continental outlook both need to be put aside because NICE actually is emblematic of the new geopolitical realities where maritime and continental structures, issues, all need to be perfectly balanced with one another if prosperity, peace, and goodwill is actually to prevail throughout the Indo-Pacific. So thank you once again for the opportunity. It's a great honor for the NMF to be partnering NICE, not only in this global conclave, but in many other fora as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Admiral Vice Admiral Pradeep Chauhan. May I now invite Professor B.R. Deepak, Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, to make his remark.
Yeah, thank you, Pramod. It's really wonderful to be part of this very impressive conclave. So we are a very small center in Jawaharlal Nehru University, focusing some people on Chinese politics, India-China relations, but there are many people who are also focusing on China's contemporary literature. And I think the rise of China is the geopolitical reality. Maybe we have recognized it, and the countries across the world, they have also recognized it. And so it is here. So how the policies, approaches are coordinated and choices are made, and whether the country is big or large or smaller, I think they are going to play an increasingly important role. As I was listening to Professor Rajamohan's remarks, and also to Professor Tomohiko Taniguchi's remarks, and also other panelists. So it is going to be an interesting, I would say, contestation in the coming times, and we all need to perhaps look into that and then see how the existing maybe the order it changes or it takes shape. And I think India, especially in South Asia, in tandem with other partners, is going to play an increasingly important role. And Nepal, of course, being at the center of a center of both India and China would be extremely crucial. I think in one way it could play the role what Singapore is playing in Southeast Asia. It could be playing the similar role in South Asia. So let us see. I'm looking forward for the deliberations. In fact, that is a session, and I would be speaking on China's rise from whatever perspectives I have made throughout my studies, and I'm looking forward. So once again, I congratulate NICE and Dr. Pramod Jaiswal for organizing this wonderful conclave. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor B.R. Deepak. Next, we have Dr. Peter Chan, Deputy Director, Institute of China Studies, Malaya University. Over to you, Peter.
Good afternoon, Pramod from here, Kuala Lumpur. I'm Peter, Deputy Director of the Institute of China Studies at the University of Malaya. As the name suggests, our task is really to look into the rise of China and its role and its impact, both in Malaysia, in the region, and across the globe as it relates to Malaysia. And I must say that up to now, our focus is mainly to the east of the peninsula Malaysia, mainly Southeast Asia, East Asia, and towards the Pacific. And that is why we really welcome this opportunity to become connected with NICE in Nepal. Our gaze has mainly towards the east, and perhaps it's time for us to turn our gaze towards the west as well, towards South Asia. And for us in Malaysia, located at the crossroads of civilizational power, both east and west, we are very historically consciously aware of how we are caught in the middle of big power rivalries. Historically, we have seen that happen, and now we are seeing this happening in real time. So we are really acutely aware of how complex the situation is right now, and we would like to be able to engage all the powers in play and perhaps find a way in which we could find a basis for which we could coexist together. And Southeast Asia, as a small country, is mindful of the limited roles that we have. Nonetheless, we do have some roles to play in trying to find the right balance. For that, as the Institute of China Studies, we really appreciate this opportunity to broaden our horizon and our understanding of the dynamics that is happening both in the region and in the rest of Asia. Thank you again, Pramod, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Next, we have Ambassador P. Georg Savvika, President of Romanian Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies. Over to you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues and dear friends. Hello from Bucharest, Romania, and best wishes for success to this important international event for which our dearest host has done a tremendous, elaborate, and productive hard work. Congratulations. I am very honored and really pleased that the Romanian Institute for Europe-Asia Studies, IRSEA, is one of the partners. I am confident that the present event will lead not only to a better understanding of the global community by exchanging ideas in an environment of mutual respect, but similarly, it represents a step forward in strengthening the robust cooperation between Europe and Asia, which in fact is the very reason for which in 2008, after my retirement from the Romanian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I have created IRSEA. Our institute is an independent, autonomous, not-for-profit think tank working for a more robust interaction and raising awareness on major developments between Europe and Asia, focusing initially on Southeast Asia South and Southeast Asia dynamics in international affairs, which it is the region of my prime specialty and where I have served as head of the mission and ambassador for more than 30 years. The Institute is currently expanding its scope to address foreign affairs and area studies in East Asia. With an outstanding record of second-track diplomacy activities, having partnership with numerous universities and think tanks in Europe, South and Southeast Asia, IRSEA is the oldest Asian-focused think tank in Romania and part of the prestigious European Alliance for Asian Studies. I avail myself of this opportunity to invite the partners of the event to contact us in order to establish institutional relations of cooperation. On our part, we will do it as well with great pleasure. Really, it is a great honor for our institute to be together with you. Thank you very much, and I wish you all success.
Thank you, Ambassador Savuika, for your remarks. May I now invite Professor Nivedita Das Kundu from Bharat Center of Canada, Toronto, to make her remarks. Yeah, I know. Professor Kundu, are you there? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, and good night, wherever you are today. I'm talking from Toronto now. It is middle of the night. So hello, everybody. I must say it was a great start of the 3 days global conclave with 3 eminent speakers from 3 different countries and other eminent experts, remarks from different institutions. On behalf of Bharat Center of Canada, a policy think tank, and York University, Toronto, we would like to congratulate the Nepal Institute for International Cooperation and Engagement for organizing this 3 days global conclave. Bharat Center of Canada, a policy think tank in Toronto, works in association with the Consulate of India in Toronto. Bharat Center of Canada is definitely extremely happy and honored to be part of this global conclave organized by NICE. Congratulations to Dr. Pramod Jaiswal and his team for bringing together so many eminent speakers, academics, practitioners, diplomats from different countries to talk on different topics of significance. I'm sure this will be a successful 3 days event, and after completion of the 3 days summit, we will look forward from NICE to come out with a policy brief with policy recommendations, and looking forward to work with NICE and other similar organizations who are partnering with this global conclave in the coming days. And with these words, I would like to congratulate once again and wish you all good luck. And I'm sure this will be a great success, and we are looking forward to listen to other eminent speakers and gain more and more knowledge. With these words, thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Professor Nivedita Das Kundu. May I now invite Professor Dai Hai Yong, Director, Institute of Bay of Bengal Studies, Shenzhen University. I think I can't locate him. If any of our partners are there, and please identify yourself. If you're not able to unmute yourself, please drop a message. If we have any of our partners from any of the participants from Center for Asian Leadership, Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, Institute of National Security Studies, Colombo, South Asia Democratic Forum, Global South Studies Center, University of Cologne, National United Service Institution of India. Okay, I think because of time zone, they have not been able to join. Yes, Asanga is there. Just a second. We have someone from INSSA. May I now invite Asanga to say a few words about Institute of National Security Studies, Sri Lanka, Colombo.
Thank you, Pramod. Thank you, and I congratulate you for this impressive, I would say, the lineup of speakers, as well as this conclave that you have put forward. Despite multiple challenges during an environment of COVID, as well as many challenges that our countries are facing. So congratulations. Institute of National Security Studies was founded in 2016. Is the premier national security think tank of Sri Lanka. So I'm the former founding director of the Institute. I would like to congratulate you for this tremendous effort that you have taken as a small nation at a time where geopolitical challenges that we are facing, Sri Lanka and Nepal, we face quite similar challenges while we have multiple spheres of influences coming into the country from the region, from the extra region. Our democratic values have been questioned as well as the human rights concerns are issue in Sri Lanka. Yesterday was quite a disturbing moment where the judiciary, the Bar Association, also sent a strong letter of a release of a murder suspect. So these democratic values are sort of being threatened right now. So we are at a time discussing all these values of rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific. They're really important topics. So I congratulate you, and I wish you all success for this conclave. Thank you.
Thank you, Asanga. Thank you very much. Before we move to the next speaker, we have received lots of questions, and so maybe if we can request Professor Taniguchi Tomohiko to make his remarks. So if you have time, maybe we can raise 2 to 3 questions. So would you like to address a few questions, Professor?
I would be happy to, if you could choose 1 or 2 questions.
Sure, I'll do that. So we have received lots of questions. So let me go to 2 or 3. The first is the role of India's ANN island in the Indian Ocean. What is the role of India, and what role Japan and India can do towards these strategic islands? This is the first question that we have received.
I think it's rather self-evident. India is the biggest country in the region. Traditionally, probably it dates back to the Raj era. When it comes to maritime connection across the Indian Ocean, there is a sense of responsibility, if I may say so, among Indian leaders, especially naval leaders. Plus, you get an archipelago off the Strait of Malacca and off the coast of Myanmar, obviously Andaman Nicobar. With that, you could claim that you are a full-fledged legitimate member of the Southeast Asian community. All combined, in the coming decades, India's presence is going to be felt with even more weight, and Japan is all the more happy to work with India, as has been already happening between the 2 navies. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me move to the next question. What are the key determinants of India-Japan partnership in the Indian Ocean, such as AAGC?
The concept that you mentioned is losing momentum, losing stamina. And I should call leaders of 2 nations, India, Japan, to once again give steam to the concept in order for the 2 countries to better develop African growth corridor. There is ample opportunity for India, Japan, and for that matter, other like-minded countries to join hands together. But nothing very much substantial has happened yet. And it needs to be beefed up even further. Along the way, I think India's growth itself is going to make it necessary for India to work more closely with many other nations, like Australia and like India, like Japan. One thing that is important is only between India and Japan, not between India and Australia, not between Japan and the United States, only between India and Australia, Japan, India and Japan, we have the same neighbor. And that same neighbor is a source of questions, concerns, anxieties, you name it. So there is also a prospect going forward for India and Japan to work more closely together on many fronts: industrial development, military technology, intelligence gathering, even deep space explorations. You know, those are the areas where Delhi, Tokyo could work more together.
Thank you, sir. There's another question related to ASEAN, like how do you see the impact of Quad will have on the relation of its member countries with ASEAN?
It seems to me that China is pushing smaller and weaker nations of ASEAN with its coercive diplomacy. It's everyone's fresh memory that one of those countries failed to come up with official statements when it hosted ASEAN-wide regional meeting. Southeast China must not be a free playing ground for China's strategic submarine fleet based around the Hainan Island. So Quad should not be an exclusive club. It is an open platform, and that must be as inclusive as possible when it comes to safeguarding the rules-based international order that must work to benefit all countries.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we have received lots of questions, so maybe if we can request, because we want to listen to more of your remarks. So if you allow me, let me share one more questions. Like, how do you look at China's stand on the South China Sea? Japan's stand on the South China Sea. How do you look at the global security architecture and the complication in that particular region?
China's perception over the sea is different from others. For the Chinese, it seems as if the sea area, South China Sea, is an extension of their land property. China, therefore, pays very little scant attention to the maritime international law that has taken so many years to mature. Now is the time for China to pay more heed to what's being accepted as norm by the international community. And Japan must work with like-minded nations who share similar concerns, let's see, Indonesia and others, to urge China to behave more in tune with the accepted norm.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. If we have other partners, please identify yourself so that we can spend 5 minutes for your remarks, and then we'll move to the next speaker. Do we have anyone from Center for Asian Leadership? Please let us know if you're not able to unmute yourself. Anyone from Bangladesh Enterprise Institute? No one from there. Bay of Bengal, Institute of Bay of Bengal. So we'll move to the next speaker. We are waiting for technical connections. We're waiting for him to join. We are waiting for there is some technical issue, so waiting to resolve it. In the meantime, if Professor Tomohiko permits, I would like to raise, yes. So thank you. He has joined it. Thank you very much, sir. Now let me start with the next presenter. Now we'd like to invite our distinguished speaker, Suresh Prabhu, former Minister of Indian Emissary to G20 and G7, to make his remarks. Suresh Prabhu is an Indian emissary to the G20 and G7 and former Minister of Civil Aviation, Minister of Commerce and Industry, Minister of Railway, Minister of Power, Minister of Fertilizers and Chemicals, Minister of Environment and Forest, and Minister of Industry. Since 1996, Mr. Prabhu has been repeatedly elected as a Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha constituency. In 2002 to 2004, he was also the chairperson of Task Force for Interlinking of Rivers. Mr. Suresh Prabhu, we are really honored to have you with us. We would like to request you, we would like to thank you for your valuable time. Over to you, sir.
Dr. Jaiswal, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very happy that my dear friend Tom just spoke, it seems. I missed his address because I was in some other program, but I'm very happy that he's also here. And I think earlier, my another very dear friend, family friend, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, I think also spoke into this program. So I'm very happy that this program is with such good dear friends. Of course, I'm also happy to know that my dear friend, Dr. Abdulla from Maldives also was here. And so I'm very happy about this very interesting program. Can we, what exactly, Dr. Jaiswal, you are particularly, what are you discussing, any particular topic or general discussion on?
So we are generally looking at the foreign policy of the countries in the neighborhood and how the countries are rising together, like the rise of Asia, rise of China and all. So it would be great if you could highlight on the economic rise of India, or maybe some of the foreign policy aspects of India.
Okay, so thank you for organizing this very interesting event. As you know, the world is passing through very difficult times, and for many reasons. One obviously is the after effects of pandemic, which we are all even today suffering from. And it seems that virus, as it happens with most of the viruses, is changing shape, becoming different variant, and causing even more damage. As it always happens, whenever you have a problem of a new variant coming in, you try to attack it with new vaccines. The virus tries to save itself, as all living beings do, because their basic instinct is to survive. Therefore, they change these different variants. And therefore, we are seeing second wave in India, third wave in UK, probably fourth wave in Japan. And so it's really becoming very difficult. But as a result of that, when we are suffering pandemic, and then subsequent to that, the world has realized the need for more and more global cooperation. The recently held G7 summit, in fact, focused on this more than adequately to realize how much we need to work together. The second aspect is economic issues. So health is no longer a standalone issue. It has already affected social life, economic life. And as economies which have suffered are going to take a while before they can be recovered and reach the pre-pandemic level. So economic damage is something which has to be considered as one of the important international and global issue. The third aspect, which always was there, and it's not that it has emerged as a new issue, was an issue related to climate change. And if you really look at it, all the three major issues, of course, there are many more, I will not get into all of that. We need global cooperation to fight them. And then if you want to talk about global cooperation, how do you get that cooperation? So you need some institutionalized support. We have created quite a few international organizations, most of them under the UN umbrella, to deal with all these global issues. There is UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, to deal with climate change. There is a WHO to deal with health issues. Then there's a World Bank and IMF and others who are dealing with economic issues. But even then, and of course there's the UN itself. But then the realization which is coming into the world that we are so much economically independent, rather economically interdependent. And because we are so interdependent, when somebody else coughs and sneezes, we catch the cold. This has become true. In fact, now it has really become true. It was just an old power, but now it has become really true that if somebody sneezes, we have to be very careful and get one more time vaccinated, probably. But that means the economic interdependence, the consequence of having a small little infection somewhere else can cause global pandemics, and the local action can lead to climate change, and climate change cannot be addressed without global cooperation. So all of this brings us to a very interesting scenario in which we have to work together. At a time when, in fact, this is a paradox, when the international order is no longer responsive, or the so-called institutions that we have created not as effective as they should be. And that brings us to a very interesting issue that we need interdependence and we are already interconnected and we cannot deal with these issues unless we come together. We must need to work and find out how these institutions can be more and more responsive and more relevant. And that brings us to the topic of reforming these institutions. The G7 did address it. G20, which is a very important grouping, which of course has all the G7 countries in any case, we'll have to deal with this. The G20 countries together account for more than 80% of the global GDP. And more than 60-65% of the global population. So they have to take the lead and must work on these important issues. Of course, we strongly believe that all the issues must be addressed only through multilateral platforms. And these multilateral platforms must be democratic, rule-based, transparent. Take example of economic issues. The world economy, if it doesn't grow, individual countries also suffer. So, growth of world economy should be the primary concern for all of us. And the growth of world economy depends on many reasons, but particularly two important elements of that. One is trade. If the global trade doesn't expand, the world economies don't expand as much. In fact, in 2008, there was a very interesting phenomena that world trade was growing at a rate faster than the growth in the world economy. Then after 2008, we are seeing a decline in commodity prices and many others resulted in that trade is not expanding as fast as the world economy was growing. And then from 2008, we are seeing both declining, world trade as well as global economy. Now the WTO, which is mandated to deal with trade issues, must take active steps, proactive steps to find out how the developing countries can benefit from global trade. The global trade is very skewed, and when the commodity prices fall, the burden of that goes into some of the developing countries. Let's take Africa. The 54, 55 countries in Africa, some of them, there are some large economies like Egypt or South Africa or Nigeria, but then there are very small countries. Though the continent is one and there are so many countries, some of those countries export only one product. And if the commodity prices fall, then that one product which is actually sustaining the economy will collapse. This has happened. So therefore, the WTO should actually work on reforming the trade policies of the world to ensure that world trade has to grow, and growth of world trade will lead to growth in the world economy, which in turn will benefit all the countries. But that has to be equitable. And that has to be transparent. It cannot be just a cartel, as it happens in case of oil, which they keep pushing up the price. And there can be another cartel of buyers. Here is a seller's cartel. The buyer's cartel will push the prices down and the countries will suffer. So we must ensure that this cartelization has to be properly reformed. In individual countries, have competition commission. There's a pan-EU competition commission. What about a global competition commission to ensure that this cartelization doesn't happen? We never thought about the issue, but we must focus on it now. When we're talking about kickstarting the world economy, which is very necessary. And that will not happen without global cooperation. So we must focus on such issues. Second important issue would be the supply chains, which is related to economy again. So one is a trade, other is global value chains, global supply chains, which again has resulted into growth in global economy phenomenally. And actually the world has benefited through these supply chains because the cost of ultimate manufactured product has gone down thanks to these supply chains. Supply chains again cannot be hoodwinked. We should not misuse the supply chains for political gains. And the geopolitics which is influencing the supply chains also must be immunized against that. And we must focus on that adequately.
Hello?
When we are going to progress on working, when we are going to progress on making the world economy grow. The climate change, we are going to have COP26 soon in UK again, and we are all looking forward to working on finding out how we'll be able to address it now, because after the huge euphoria when we had Copenhagen, we have seen a declining interest in climate change at a time when the climate change threat is becoming more and more severe. So we must align both. Response should be adequate enough to the threat that is posed, and we must work on this. I think as we go along, we'll have to work on finding out building blocks for this global cooperation. We must find out how we can work together in a way that we must focus adequately on making sure that how each and every country can help each other. Take in a neighborhood, Nepal, a small country with very brave people, very hardworking people, very talented people, have helped the world wherever they've gone, whether for security purposes, whether they're army, or wherever they're gone and offered their labor, not only in India, all over the world. And they have been very successful. But that economy is dependent on this kind of global cooperation. In fact, Himalayas, which is of course shared by many countries, but the highest peak of Himalaya and the highest peak of the world is in Nepal. The Himalaya is under severe threat because of climate change. It's going to affect tourism of Nepal. The water security will be affected because that's the water tower of the world. These global supply chains I talked about will affect countries like Nepal more. The pandemic, which is actually has affected Nepal significantly, like it affected many other countries, including India, is also going to pose challenges. So all three issues I mentioned, there are many more, whether it's global economy, whether it's healthcare global, or whether it's climate change, all three are affecting countries like Nepal, smaller countries like Nepal, which are already waiting to be part of the global economy for a long time. So in fact, the pandemic has pushed more people into poverty. If the economic decline will push more people into poverty, and there will be more climate refugees, which will also make people poorer because the natural resource on which so many people survive are going to be adversely affected, including the biodiversity as a result of climate change. So the whole international cooperation must be based on supporting countries which needs more support and more help. They needed it already, and now they need it even more. So we must develop new models of global cooperation in which countries like Nepal will benefit as much as others, of course, but Nepal, I just mentioned, because it's my neighborhood, my country which I love, and therefore we must find out ways of working together. That's the responsibility of countries, even in G20 grouping. In fact, in G20, my Prime Minister and we always say this, that G20 has a responsibility for not those who are in the grouping, but those who are not. Those who are in the room must think about those who are outside the room and make sure that we create a world far better than what it is today, without ignoring the concerns and the priorities and the challenges faced by the smaller countries like Nepal and others. So I hope we'll be able to take effective steps. India stands firmly united behind all these major issues. We'll be hosting G20 in the course of next few months, actually, 2023. And Dr. Jaiswal, I want to congratulate you for organizing this very interesting and very important event, which is so well participated, and many countries are taking interest. That shows the faith each one of them has in your leadership and your organizing ability. But let me promise you one thing. I can just see my dear friend Manju Puri coming in, Ambassador Puri, who is one of a very distinguished diplomat, one of the finest. And I think, therefore, when he's here, I should end my speech, because I think he can speak far better than what I can. And I therefore congratulate Dr. Jaiswal to you once again, and thank all my other speakers. As I was saying, I was very happy to see my dear friend Dinesh Gunawardena, very, very dear family friend. So he's a foreign minister, but for me, he's my personal dear family friend. And so was my Tom, who was a Prime Minister Abe's advisor and very dear family friend again. So very happy to see so many of them. Dr. Jaiswal, congratulations to you. Let me assure you one thing. Anytime you think we can offer you some help, we are always there for you. Nepal, and people, when I went to Nepal as Commerce Minister, I went there as Railway Minister, I went there many times. People ask me, Nepal and India, who is a younger brother and who is an older brother? I say, you're asking a wrong question. No one is younger, nobody is older. We are twin brothers. So therefore, there is nothing like elder or younger. We are all together. And as twin brothers, it's my responsibility to, and when you feel the pain, we also feel the pain as the twin brothers would feel. And we'll be happy when you become happy. And that's what the twin brothers' job is. So we look forward to the prosperity and development in Nepal, like we aspire and hope for all the smaller developing countries in the world should develop more, as they have missed out in the past from this old trading system, old economic system, and now today because of poor healthcare system in the world. So global governance must focus on such countries, such issues more as we go along, and India stands firmly with you to make that happen. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Prabhu, thank you very much for your remark. Thank you once again for your valuable time. Here we come to the end of the inaugural session. I, on behalf of NICE, once again would like to thank Honorable Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, Member of Parliament and Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, former Minister and Indian Emissary of the G20 and G7, Dr. Abdulla Rasheed Ahmed, Minister of State for Education, Maldives, and Professor Taniguchi Tomohiko, Professor of Keio University and Special Advisor to Prime Minister ShinzoAbe. And for the wonderful remarks. We'd also like to thank all our partners, participants, friends from diplomatic mission and media for their kind presence. Thank you once again. Please join us to our next session. Thank you very much.